Hello, Diocese of the Rio Grande. I'm here with two very important and special people, and we've been collaborating on ministry together for a couple of months now, although we've only just met. So I'm wondering if you all could introduce yourselves to the Diocese of the Rio Grande and tell us about what you do.
I'm Celia Yapita. I'm the Chief Program Officer with Catholic Charities, and I'm also overseeing the sites that we have here to support asylees coming from the border.
And I'm Eleanor Milroy. I'm one of the founders of Albuquerque Interfaith. I'm now retired and volunteering, and I am a site coordinator for the asylees coming through.
And so there's a tremendous ecumenical and interfaith effort that's been going on, as we've been talking about, helping to care for the asylum seekers who are legally present in the United States, waiting their court date for their asylum hearing. And I'm sure you've seen on the news how the numbers of people coming through and families and young children have been kind of overwhelming the existing infrastructure that is run by the government in order to handle that purpose. And these wonderful people have been a part of the logistics and coordination efforts that are literally saving lives every week and every day. And so we've been talking about Albuquerque, but we've also been talking about the state of New Mexico and El Paso and how the waves of asylum seekers have been impacting each of those cities. So Celia, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what's happening right now.
So every day for the last many months, we've had about 700 to 1,000 people who are released out into El Paso from ICE. And these folks are processed through Annunciation House, which Ruben Garcia is the director there. And then Ruben has established relationships with churches, organizations throughout the border area, and then all the way up here to Albuquerque now, to receive those folks who would otherwise be homeless once they're released from ICE. Because, as you've mentioned, there is overwhelming the infrastructure of ICE right now. What's happening right now is that Customs and Border Patrol, who all these folks are first processed through, is no longer sending them through ICE and then they're released. They're just releasing them themselves. And when CBP releases, there is often less paperwork. They are still monitored and background checked and all of that before they enter our country, but they sometimes don't have all the paperwork they need. And now CBP is taking folks to Las Cruces. And so you may have seen in the paper that Las Cruces has been receiving up to 150 people a day over the last couple weeks. And that is more than what Las Cruces can handle in their own city abilities. So they've been contacting and reaching out to the mayors of both Albuquerque and Santa Fe to figure out how Albuquerque could help with some of that overflow. Already since February, we've received about 1,600, maybe more now, through organizations like Interfaith, Lutheran Family Services, St. Michael's, other organizations, Congregation Albert, and Catholic Charities. We already were receiving many buses, so this new number coming into Las Cruces that then is coming to Albuquerque is a new great increase in the number of folks who need that support.
Right, so we already were planning, and various church groups and interfaith groups have been taking a bus or two a week into Albuquerque directly coming from El Paso. And what's happening now is, as Las Cruces is getting overwhelmed, actually the city of Las Cruces is partnering with the city of Albuquerque to try to take twice again as many more, right? And so we have parishioners at St. Andrew's in Las Cruces and at St. James Messiah Park who have been active in efforts there. But what we're now hearing is that the mayor of Las Cruces, the shelters are overwhelmed, and they've been having to make a choice. Do we turn out homeless people from our shelters in order to house the asylees, or do we try to send them further on up towards Albuquerque? And so now there's conversations going on in Albuquerque about creating perhaps a single place that might be able to take up to 300 people at a time, right? And so tell us about those plans.
But there was one location the city and the state have offered that might be able to work if they can work out the details of that. But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that. No, right now.
Well, only that part of our role is to, as people get released, they all have sponsors, and their sponsors are family members. So they get off the bus, the ICE bus, not even knowing who we are, and the first thing we say is, "We are not ICE." They get off very tired. They're not getting enough to eat. They're not getting enough water even. And so they get a shower, they get a warm welcome, they get food, and that's the role the churches are playing. And then we contact their sponsors, and they stay with us in whatever facility we're using until they are either on a Greyhound, an Amtrak, or a plane to their family members. And to see that transition from getting off the ICE bus looking totally frightened, frazzled, to being freshened and off to their loved ones is an incredible transition and a very warm, heartwarming transition to see.
And it's an important point that all of these folks move on 100%. So they won't stay here in Albuquerque. They will go to their families on the East Coast or the West Coast or all over the country, because that's where they're court ordered to go to, and that's where they'll follow up with their asylum case. And then just to reiterate too, all of them are background checked before they are allowed into our country. So no one with a criminal history or anything like that would be coming into our country. They are fingerprinted and background checked, and those folks are tracked once they're in the United States.
They're monitored with ankle bracelets as well.
They're monitored with ankle bracelets under the supervision of ICE, and that way, ICE is able to monitor where they are in the country, and so that legal process is being followed for them.
Yeah. And like you say, the transformation that we saw here when we were hosting the one bus that we've been able to take, although we're taking another one coming up, the transformation just in the space of 3 days for people who have come off the bus literally having slept under the bridge in El Paso, and then 24 hours later the kids are playing, they've been well fed, just the sense of security that they were able to get a good night's sleep without being afraid of what might happen to them or their children in the middle of the night. The impact that the hospitality and welcome that the churches are making is amazing. And yet it also it takes a lot of volunteers and a lot of funds, and those volunteers are stressed, and you all have been working on this for months, day in and day out. And so we're now literally looking at how can we help take care of the volunteers, both by getting more volunteers to participate and also by looking after the health and wellness of volunteers who are doing much more of this work than any of us thought when we first started, and now it's just exponentially increasing as well. So could you all talk a little bit about how to take care of the volunteers and in the midst of all this?
Well, a brief story, if I may. So we found out that the family found a ticket, and so we had to get up to the hotel room and quick tell them, we got to get you to the airport. And when we knocked on the hotel room door, the father and his little girl were on their knees praying at the foot of the bed. So we held back, let them finish praying, and we go, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You've got a flight. You're going to meet your family. They said, oh no, we weren't praying for us. We're praying for you. We're thanking you for what you're doing. That feeds the volunteers.
Absolutely.
That's good food.
And I think just we've talked about brainstorming some ways to support the volunteers, having kind of moments where we gather and try to reflect on what happened. We'd like to, try to start doing that more. Having a space that is a kind of a quiet space for volunteers to go and gather. I think you mentioned you have like a space for that. So just reminding each other to be kind and generous to each other. This is stressful work, and mistakes will get made, and that's okay. Just remembering that we're all here to help, and just taking deep breaths and knowing that any problems can be fixed no matter what they are, and that these families will be reunited with their families here in the United States, which is what the ultimate goal. That's our main goal in doing this. So just keeping all those things in mind and allowing for that kind of that forgiveness and patience with each other and generosity with each other is important.
And I'm so grateful for the work that both Albuquerque Interfaith and Catholic Charities has been doing. And it's been months now of really good volunteers working with the churches and the faith community and other nonprofits in order to help meet the humanitarian need that this crisis has created. And it seems to me now that we're reaching the place where the volunteers and the faith community and the churches simply can't keep up with what's happening. And so we're now, as a natural next step, starting to work on government nonprofit partnerships, whether it is, if it's possible for the fairgrounds to be used, that would be a state and city and church nonprofit. So for those of you who are worried about churches getting too political, part of what I want you to hear from the Bishop of the Diocese of the Rio Grande is, in order to meet this humanitarian need, we are reaching the place where the capacity of the church and interfaith community is being overwhelmed, and we're going to need to be working on good, solid government, nonprofit solutions to engage with this issue of the legal asylum seekers being present in our country and how that works. So you're going to hear more from me about how can we as the church partner with both city government and state government and the federal government in order to help meet the need that's happening. thank you both for all that you're doing, and we're going to keep working together on this. And thanks be to God for each of you.
Thank you.